Hi friends, tonight we are going to be prepping a couple breakfast items for tomorrow. One is a really delicious breakfast bake that I grew up with my mom making. It's got eggs, it's got hash browns, it's got meat, all the good things. And I'm also going to be prepping my sourdough starter so I can make some more bread for the week. So let's get started because we gotta get this thing done so I can go to bed. First up, we are going to melt an entire stick of butter. Yes, a whole stick. This is gonna go on the bottom of our 9 by 13 baking dish. All right, we'll just let that melt and I'm gonna start my hamburger. So we wanna use 1 pound of either hamburger, sausage, bacon, whatever kind of meat you've got on hand. You could do chicken. I don't usually go first thing to chicken as like a breakfast food, but you definitely could do chicken instead of sausage or hamburger. While we wait for my pan to heat up, I'm gonna take my melted butter and we're just gonna pour this over the bottom of this 9 by 13 baking dish. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Who is it? Paula Deen, who usually cooks with like a lot of butter. That's who I'm channeling right now is Paula Deen. All right, while we wait for our hamburger to be done cooking, I'm gonna multitask and measure out 9 cups of hash browns for our bake. And this is an awesome glass 8-cupper that you can get on Amazon. I love how big it is. I use this for pancake batter, waffle batter, a bunch of eggs, just really anything that I'm mixing. Like, it's so big, it's so nice. And it's glass, so you can also put it in the microwave. Here we go. And we'll mix all of this together in one bowl before we put it in our 9 by 13 pan. So that was 9 cups of hash browns. The reason I am making this big casserole tonight instead of tomorrow is you want it to sit overnight and then you put it in the oven that same morning, and I'd rather have it be prepped the night before than have to get up even extra earlier tomorrow to put this all together and then, woo, that's a lot of steam, and then bake it. So doing it tonight because tomorrow my husband, my dad, and my father-in-law are going to be tearing out our deck and they're gonna build us a new one. I'm really excited because then I can finally use my deck with my daughter easily and have like a playhouse out there or like a water splash pad thing like on the deck, and she's not gonna get like slivers or trip over nails. It's just not a safe deck. And the stairs are all like slanted right now. So I'm super excited. And we do need 4 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. I just said cheddar weird there. 4 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. So I thought I had another entire block of this cheese in my fridge, but I do not. So I'm gonna shred up however much this is, use that, and then I do have Parmesan, and we're just gonna put a bunch of Parmesan in our casserole. And you know what? That's just life. That happens. I would ideally love to have just cheddar cheese in there, but we don't have it. So we're gonna go with Parmesan. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit here before starting because just having a really messy countertop drives me nuts when I'm cooking. So I'm gonna put these back in the freezer. I'm gonna move this up so I can actually have space to shred my cheese. And I'm using this hand grater. I do have an electric grater, but it's kind of hard to clean. I love it, it's super fast. It attaches to my KitchenAid, but with it being circular, it's really hard to like clean the inside of this. And so I'm just gonna do it by hand. Also, if you hear any construction noises in the background right now, my husband and our 2 neighbors started the demo a little bit early. They're demoing the deck tonight in the dark, but they're having fun. So that's all that matters, right? It's a pretty good pile of cheese. Let's see how much this is. When you're cooking, you always gotta, you know, taste the cheese a little. Make sure it's still good. I love cheese. Check this out. Exactly 4 cups of cheddar cheese, and that's how much I need. So that one little block of cheese did perfectly fine, and I don't need to shred up any Parmesan. Ha, how lucky. But now I do need to add cheddar cheese to our grocery list so we don't forget. Okay, so you could also totally buy pre-shredded bag cheese. That would work perfectly fine. I prefer to buy the block cheese and then shred it myself. But if you want to buy pre-shredded, that's totally fine, and it works just great as well. Now we're gonna add this into our hash brown and hamburger mixture, and then we're gonna pour it over our 1 stick of melted butter. Look at that deliciousness. All right, you want a glass dish for this as well. Glass works so much better than other dishes. Glass is just the best. So use a glass dish. Honestly, I don't know why, it's in my mom's notes, so I'm just following exactly how my mom always made it. There was probably a for sure reason why she said make sure to always use glass. I'm sure she had an issue where she didn't use glass and it just didn't work as well. I don't know, I'm just doing what my mom says, you know? So we pour this over the stick of butter. Be careful when you spread it around because there's a lot. This is a great recipe to either meal prep if you just want lots of leftovers, or I remember a lot of times, like after my sister's wedding, my mom prepped a bunch of these and had them in the freezer, and the next morning we had people staying at our house and she just popped them in the oven and they were ready to go. So like you can meal prep these a month ahead of time, keep it in your freezer, have it in like a freezer safe, either do glass dish or some freezer safe dishes, and you just can pop them out and then cook them and go ahead and eat them. So these just are a great recipe all around. Okay, and I have not forgotten our eggs. We are gonna do that next. I'm going to do a couple dishes and clean a little bit, and then we'll do our eggs. All right, see, I promised you I didn't forget about the eggs. We're gonna do the eggs now. You just do those separately and then we pour them over top. So we've got 12 eggs. I'll put these in my nice big dish. So this recipe will serve around 12 people. It could do more if you eat smaller slices, but it's a really good one if you're gonna be hosting people or just want something to last you throughout the week. And I am going to rinse off all of these eggshells because we have a compost pile in our backyard for our garden. So I like to save all these eggshells. I wash them off first and then put them in our compost bin. And I also love that these Costco eggs come in the recyclable containers, so I can recycle this instead of throwing out that styrofoam that a lot of places have. Before I add in my seasonings, I'm going to whisk this up a little bit just to get them incorporated. And then I'll add in our salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder. Those are my two, onion powder and garlic powder are my go-tos. I always have to have massive things of it in my cupboard because I just use so much of it. And I would say if you're a measuring person and you really want to know measurements, go with about a teaspoon salt, teaspoon pepper, half teaspoon ground mustard, teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of onion powder and garlic powder. So I like extra seasonings and I usually don't measure. I just measure with my heart. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. Okay. This is ground mustard. My mom's recipe says half teaspoon dry mustard. So From what my mom usually makes, she does a half teaspoon of dry mustard. And then some salt. Always gotta have salt with your eggs. Definitely don't oversalt things. You can oversalt stuff, so I would never go more than, when you're doing like 12 eggs, more than a teaspoon. That might even be much. I don't think I did that much in here. And when you're doing just like 1 egg, you really don't need that much salt, just like a pinch. I will say salt is one of those things that, like, if you're quadrupling a recipe, you can also double, triple, quadruple the salt, but sometimes that can be too much salt. So I would salt things and then taste it and then salt it a little more if you need to. You can always add more later, but you can't ever take the salt out. So just don't oversalt it. All right. And this really isn't that difficult or take that long to make. You just gotta do brown in the hamburger. And now we've got all of our egg mixture, and we're just gonna pour it over top of our potatoes and hamburger and cheese. Shoot, I even had the milk out and I forgot it. So we're gonna add that quickly to our eggs before I pour it over. So 1 cup of milk. And I'm using whole milk. You can use whatever kind of milk you're comfortable with. The nut milks may not be that good. I probably wouldn't do that. I mean, your bake is just gonna kind of have a nutty flavor, so if that's okay with you, go for it, but I would stick to regular dairy milk if you can. If you have allergies, obviously, then don't do that. Okay, and then you just carefully and slowly pour this over top, trying to get in all of the cracks and along every inch of the bake. That's why this glass measuring cup is so nice, because it has the pouring spout. It's awesome. So the last thing we're gonna do for this thing tonight is just cover it, set it in the fridge, let it set overnight, get all that egg mixture really nicely soaked into everything, and we will bake it in the morning. But one thing before I go to bed, one thing I'm gonna do is feed my starter. I have recently gotten into making sourdough bread, and my adventure with sourdough it's been rocky. I mean, I've gotten it down sandwich bread now to where like my sandwich bread is really good and it's super easy. I don't have any of my own sourdough recipes yet. Well, I guess I do have waffles, pancakes, and like sourdough discard recipes that I've made myself and really gotten into. But the stuff where you want it to be active in bread, I am using Farmhouse on Boone's recipe for her bread, because I just haven't been doing it long enough to really know like my own recipes and makeup stuff yet. But her stuff, her sourdough recipes are really good. Sourdough bread and the artisan loaf. When I was doing my artisan loaf, I don't think my starter was like old enough or bubbly enough, because it never rose really well. And then I also made the mistake of letting it sit to rise too long, and it just became like I poured it out of the bowl and it just went plopped all over my kitchen counter. So there's definitely a lot of trial and error with the artisan bread that you have to go through, but I'm totally getting the sandwich bread down, and I'm gonna feed my starter here real quick. We're just gonna put this in the oven, or not the oven, the fridge. And I got my starter out of the fridge. So if you don't make a bunch of bread every single day, your starter just lives in your fridge until you need it again, and then you feed it. All right, I've got lots of dishes. I'm actually gonna do some dishes first because my sink is full. Clean up these eggshells, and then I will feed my starter, and I'm gonna go to bed. But I'll see you guys in the morning, and I'll show you guys the baking process and how the casserole comes out after it's been baked. So y'all know I'm not just making stuff up. Here is one of my whole wheat sandwich loaves that I have made. We are currently eating through. What I'm doing right now is I feed my starter, and then the recipe that I use makes 2 loaves. So I make the 2 loaves, and then wrap up one, put it in the freezer for a week while we eat the other, and then after that week, take the other one out, and then make more bread when we're on the last one. So usually lasts us about 2 to 3 weeks, and then I can make another batch. So just so you know, I'm not fibbing. This bread is pretty good. Pretty pumped about it. Good morning. It is now around 6:15, so I need to get this casserole in the oven. We're gonna preheat our oven first to 350. And while we wait for that to preheat, I'm gonna get the casserole out of the fridge and I'm gonna start a pot of coffee, 'cause it's early. We'll bake the casserole in the oven for 60 minutes. Before I go get ready and change for the day, I want to show you my sourdough starter that we fed last night. Look at that baby. She is growing like crazy. So I'm gonna have to make some bread dough this morning too. It's all nice and bubbly. Thank you so much for watching, friends. If you are looking for budget-friendly recipes and meal ideas, make sure to check out my playlist linked here at the end. I will see you again next time, and thanks, y'all.